Close your eyes for just a moment. Not literally, stay with me, but inwardly. Go to that quiet place inside yourself where you keep the thoughts you do not say out loud, the ones about this person, the replayed conversations, the unanswered questions, the feeling that lives somewhere between your chest and your throat that you cannot quite name and cannot quite release. You know exactly what I am talking about, and the fact that you are here right now listening to this, that is not an accident, because something in you is still trying to understand what is happening between you and this person. Something in you knows there is more beneath the surface than what has been spoken. And something in you, your intuition, that deep feminine knowing that modern culture has spent centuries trying to convince you to dismiss, something in you is right. There are 3 messages coming from this person, not from a crystal ball, not from the universe in some abstract, untouchable sense, from the psychology of who they actually are, from the patterns running beneath their behavior that they themselves may not fully understand. From the parts of them that are speaking loudly in the language of action and silence and inconsistency, the language that requires translation because it was never meant to be easy to read. And I am going to give you that translation today. All 3 messages, including the second one, the one that is going to shift something fundamental in how you see this entire situation. But I need you to stay with me through all 3, because the first message is the one that makes the second one make sense, and the second one is the one that makes the third one possible. So let us begin. The first message from this person is this: they are not who they have been presenting themselves to be around you. Now, before you react to that, before you hear it as a warning or a criticism of them or a judgment, let me show you what I actually mean, because this is not a simple statement. It is a Jungian truth that runs so deep it will reframe everything you have been confused about. Carl Jung spent decades studying the architecture of the human personality, and one of his most powerful and most uncomfortable discoveries was the concept he called the persona. The persona is the face we present to the world, the curated, managed, socially acceptable version of ourselves that we built. Piece by piece, year by year, in response to what the world rewarded and punished us for being. The persona is not fake, exactly, but it is incomplete. It is the part of us that learned what was safe to show. And then Jung identified what lives on the other side of the persona, the shadow, the vast, unlit interior of everything we are that we were taught, often in childhood, often through pain, was too much, too needy, too weak, too intense, too vulnerable, too honest to show. The anger that was not allowed, the longing that was not safe to express, the tenderness that was once mocked, the need for love that was once punished by abandonment. Here is what this means for your person, the way they have been behaving around you, the distance, the inconsistency, the emotional walls, the mixed signals. That is not the truth of who they are. That is the persona doing what personas do: managing, protecting, performing strength over vulnerability, indifference over feeling, control over surrender. And your presence, you specifically, the particular combination of who you are, has been doing something to this person that almost nothing else in their life does. You have been activating their shadow, not because you did something wrong, because you did something right. You saw through the persona, maybe not consciously, maybe not in words, but at an energetic level, the level that Jung called the unconscious. They felt seen by you in a way that the persona cannot survive. And that is terrifying, genuinely, physiologically terrifying, not metaphorically. When someone whose entire emotional survival strategy is built around control and self-sufficiency encounters a person who sees through that strategy, the nervous system registers it as danger, not because danger is there, but because the nervous system has learned, through years of early experience, that being truly seen led to pain, that vulnerability led to abandonment, that showing the real self was followed by rejection. So, they did what every wounded human animal does when cornered by something they both want and fear. They retreated, they became confusing, they sent you warmth and then withdrew it. They let you close and then created distance. They showed you something real and then covered it back over with behavior that made you question what you saw. And this is the first message. Beneath all of that performance, beneath the persona they have been wearing around you, there is a completely different person trying to surface. A person with depth they rarely show anyone. A person with feelings about you that are significantly more complex and significantly more real than their behavior has demonstrated. A person who is, right now, in a quiet but profound internal struggle that you are at the center of, whether they have told you that or not. That is the first message, and it matters enormously, because now we can look at the second one. The second message from this person is this. They are not confused about how they feel about you. I told you this one would shift something. Let me explain exactly what I mean, because this is where the psychology becomes genuinely revelatory and possibly uncomfortable. We have a cultural story about people who are emotionally unavailable, who blow hot and cold, who seem interested and then pull away, who say confusing things and take contradictory actions. And the story we tell is that these people are confused, that they do not know what they want, that they are on a journey of self-discovery and they just need more time to figure it out. That if we are patient enough, understanding enough, available enough, they will eventually arrive at clarity. I want to offer you a different possibility, one that Jung's work points to directly, one that is harder to hear, but ultimately far more useful to you. Most of the time, emotionally unavailable people are not confused about how they feel. They are frightened of what they feel. And those are two completely different things with two completely different implications. Confusion is passive. Confusion waits for clarity to arrive. Confusion is genuinely in a fog and needs time and information to navigate through it. Fear is active. Fear knows exactly what it is afraid of. Fear is not waiting for clarity. Fear already has clarity and is running from it. Fear does not need more time or more information. Fear needs courage, and courage is not something you can give another person. No matter how patient you are, no matter how understanding, no matter how perfectly you make yourself available. Here is what this means for your situation. When this person goes quiet after a moment of genuine connection, that is not confusion. They know they felt something. When they pull back just as things between you start to deepen, that is not indecision. They know which direction they are pulling back from and why. When they send mixed signals, warmth followed by distance, openness followed by walls, that is not the behavior of someone who does not know what they want. That is the behavior of someone who knows exactly what they want and is terrified of wanting it. Because what they want requires surrender. And surrender, genuine emotional surrender to another person, means the persona has to come down. It means the shadow has to be integrated. It means they have to become visible, truly visible, in a way they have spent years, possibly decades, engineering their life to avoid. And here is the part that may genuinely shock you. Ready? They may already love you, not in the finished, settled, at-peace sense of mature love, but in the raw, destabilizing, psychologically overwhelming sense of early love. The kind that does not ask permission before it arrives. The kind that rewrites your internal landscape before you have agreed to let it. The kind that Jung described as the experience of the anima, or animus, the deep interior opposite within the psyche, finally recognizing itself reflected in another person. That kind of love does not feel gentle at first, particularly not to people who are defended. It feels like invasion. It feels like loss of control. It feels like the emotional equivalent of the ground shifting beneath your feet. And the response to that feeling for someone who survived by staying in control is not to open their arms and welcome it. The response is to push it away. Hard. Repeatedly, while simultaneously being unable to stop thinking about you. This is not cruelty. It is not a game. It is not manipulation, at least not at the conscious level. It is a person at war with themselves, and you are the territory they are fighting over. Part of them wants to claim what they feel. Part of them is terrified of what claiming it would cost. And until one of those parts wins, the behavior you experience is the external expression of that internal war. Inconsistent, confusing, maddening, heartbreaking. But knowing this changes something important in how you hold this situation. Because if they are not confused but frightened, then the question shifts. It is no longer, how do I help them figure out what they feel? It becomes something more honest, more clear, and ultimately more powerful. Are they someone who is willing to face their fear, or are they someone who will let fear make the decision? That question matters more than any message they send or do not send. It matters more than any signal you interpret or overinterpret. It matters more than the length of their silence or the warmth of their last contact. Because the answer to that question tells you everything you actually need to know. And it brings us to the third message. But before I give it to you, I need to pause here and say something to you directly. Something that the first two messages make necessary. You have been reading this person very carefully, possibly for a long time, watching their behavior, listening beneath their words, feeling into the space between what they say and what they mean, carrying the emotional weight of a connection that has not been fully spoken. That intuitive attentiveness, the way you read emotional subtext, the way you feel into relational dynamics, the way you know when something is not quite right or not quite complete, that is one of the most sophisticated forms of human intelligence that exists. But it has also been costing you enormously. Because when you are giving the majority of your emotional energy to deciphering another person, you have very little left for yourself. And there is a Jungian principle at work here that is just as important as anything we have said about them. Jung believed that the deepest relationships we have, the ones that consume us, that replay in our minds, that we cannot simply choose to stop thinking about, are not random. They activate something specific in our own psyche. They call up our own shadow material. Our own wounds around love, around worth, around whether we are truly lovable or whether we have to earn love through patience and understanding and an endless willingness to absorb another person's inconsistency. And for many women, particularly women who are emotionally intelligent, relationally gifted and capable of great depth, the shadow contains something specific and painful. The belief operating silently at a level beneath conscious thought that love is something she has to make happen. That if she reads the situation correctly enough, responds perfectly enough, gives generously enough, stays open long enough, she can create the outcome she needs. She can make him see. She can make him choose. She can make him ready. That belief is not love. It is a wound wearing the costume of devotion. And it is the wound that makes emotionally unavailable people so magnetic to emotionally intelligent women, because an emotionally unavailable person presents the ultimate version of the problem she has been unconsciously trying to solve her whole life. How do I earn love from someone who is not freely giving it? This is uncomfortable, I know it is, but it is also one of the most liberating things you can understand, because once you see it, you have a choice that you did not have before. You can continue to put your considerable gifts of intuition and attentiveness entirely in the service of decoding this person. Or you can turn some of that remarkable perception toward yourself, toward the part of you that chose this dynamic, toward the wound that finds it so familiar, toward the belief you are still carrying that love has to be worked for rather than simply recognized and received. That is not blame. That is the invitation this entire situation has been carrying for you underneath the surface all along. Now, the third message from this person is the one that depends entirely on something they cannot control. And it is this. There is a moment coming, if it has not already arrived, when this person will have to make a decision that their fear has been successfully delaying. Not a dramatic decision, not necessarily a grand gesture or a direct confession, but an internal decision, a tipping point where the cost of continuing to suppress what they feel becomes greater than the cost of finally acknowledging it. Jung called this the enantiodromia, the moment when something suppressed so long and so forcefully begins to convert into its opposite, when the energy used to hold something down becomes the energy that releases it. When the wall does not get higher anymore, it gets thinner, and light begins to come through. This person has been spending a significant amount of psychological energy on suppression, on managing what they feel around you, on maintaining the distance that protects the persona. But suppression is exhausting, and the psyche does not suppress forever. At some point, the unconscious always asserts itself, the dream surfaces, the feeling breaks through, the thing that was denied demands to be acknowledged. And when that moment comes for this person, whether it comes as a reach out, a conversation, a moment of unexpected honesty, or simply an internal surrender that you may never directly witness but will feel in the shift of their energy, it will not be because you waited perfectly or signaled correctly or made yourself available in exactly the right way. It will be because they reached the limit of what fear can sustain, and the love underneath became too loud to keep covering. But here is what I need you to understand about that moment. Here is the truth that makes all three messages ultimately about you rather than about them. When that moment comes, you will have a choice too. You will be the woman who has spent months in careful waiting, overinterpreting every signal, quietly abandoning her own needs in service of the hope that he will finally arrive. And when he does, she accepts whatever version he offers because she is simply relieved that the uncertainty ended. Or you will be the woman who used this time differently, who heard these messages not as reasons to wait harder and hope more desperately, but as information, clear, psychological, honest information about who this person is and what they are and are not currently capable of. Who turned some of her remarkable emotional attentiveness inward and did the work of understanding her own patterns, healing her own wound around earned love, and building a self that is genuinely grounded in her own value, rather than anxiously tethered to his recognition of it. That second woman walks into the moment of his arrival completely differently. She is warm, but not desperate. She is open, but not collapsed. She is genuinely glad he found his courage, but she is not handing her entire emotional life back to him simply because he finally showed up. She has something she did not have before. She has herself, fully, clearly, without apology. And that quality, that groundedness, that quiet completeness is the most genuinely attractive thing a woman can bring to any relationship. Not because attraction is a strategy or a game, but because it is the truth of what love that actually works is made from. Two people who are whole enough to choose each other rather than two people who are wounded enough to need each other. So let me give you the full translation of all three messages together, because together they form something larger than any of them alone. The first message was this: beneath the persona this person shows you, there is someone far more feeling, far more conflicted, and far more affected by you than their behavior has revealed. The second message was this: they are not confused about what they feel, they are frightened of it, and frightened people can only be helped to face their fear by their own courage, not by your endurance. And the third message is this: a moment of decision is coming, for them, and equally for you. Because the real question this entire situation has been asking, beneath the silence, beneath the mixed signals, beneath the replayed conversations and the unanswered texts, and the feeling that will not leave, the real question was never only, does he love me? The real question was always, do I know myself clearly enough, love myself honestly enough, and value myself deeply enough to receive love that is actually worthy of me? That is the question that changes everything, not because it replaces the longing you feel, but because it gives the longing context. It gives you context. It reminds you that you are not simply a receiver of his messages, you are a sender of your own. And the most powerful message you can send, not to him, but to yourself, right now, in this moment, is this: I am not available to be perpetually uncertain about my own worth. I am not available to make myself smaller in order to make someone else's fear more manageable. I am open to real love. I am capable of real love. But I will not confuse real love with the particular ache of waiting for someone who has not yet found the courage to offer it. That does not mean closing your heart. It means knowing what your heart is for. It is for love that moves toward you, not just love that thinks about moving and stays still. It is for connection that deepens rather than connection that keeps resetting to the same unresolved beginning. It is for a person who is not only capable of feeling deeply, but willing to be honest about it, not perfectly, not without fear, but honestly, progressively, with actual movement, actual choice, actual courage. That is what you deserve, not as a consolation prize for giving up on this person, but as the baseline, the minimum, the starting point, not the aspiration. So when people ask me, does this person have messages for you? Yes, they do. 3 of them, just as I said. And now you've heard them all. But the more important question is what message you have for yourself. Because that is the one you carry forward, regardless of what he decides. That is the one that shapes every relationship you will ever have. That is the one Carl Jung spent his life trying to help people find their way back to. The message from your own deepest self. The one that has been trying to speak underneath all of this longing and waiting and over-analyzing and hoping. The one that says, I am already whole, I am already enough, I am already worth choosing, and I will build my life and offer my love from that truth, not from the anxious hope that someone else will eventually confirm it. That message was always the most important one, and you have always been the one it was meant for.